Okay, next we have, we're very lucky to have a wheat grower serving as the director of the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, Dr. Tim Boring. Dr. Boring was appointed by the Biden administration to serve as the state executive director of the USDA Farm Service Agency in 2021. He previously operated his family's sixth-generation family farm in Stockbridge, Michigan. Prior to his appointment at the USDA, he was the president and founder of Michigan Agricultural Advancement. He also previously served as the vice president of the Michigan Agribusiness Association and worked as a researcher director of the Michigan Soybean Promotion Committee. Governor Whitmer has previously appointed Dr. Boring to the Michigan Commission of Agriculture and Rural Development in 2019 and recently appointed him to Director of the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development in 2023. He earned his Bachelor's of Science in Agri-Science, Master's of Science in Crop and Soils, and PhD in Crop and Soil Sciences from Michigan State University. That's a lot of school. Please welcome Dr. Tim Boring.
I never know which biography our team is going to submit, or as the long one, or like the one that's 2 sentences. That's probably sufficient. Well, thank you. It's great to be here. Always enjoy having the opportunity to specifically interact with the wheat group, hear from Jody about all of what you guys are doing. It's always impressive of just, I think, of how dedicated the wheat program, the wheat checkoff, has been to reinvesting in the industry, really striving to meet growers' needs. Like developing tangible returns on investments. So excited to have the opportunity to talk a little bit about what we're doing at the department and kind of how we see some of the work that we're doing at the department fitting into like what we're trying to do of furthering opportunities in agriculture. And we're talking a lot about resiliency and diversity and economic opportunities. And I think that can easily kind of become too nebulous and doesn't get specific. The story of the wheat industry, I think, is a perfect encapsulation of the challenges we have in Michigan ag right now, the issues in front of us, the opportunities for continued advancement of what this work can mean in a broader sense. Look, if you're focused too much on the forest or on the trees right now instead of the forest, if you're really honed in on what goes on in individual farms, it's not that hard to come up with reasons not to grow wheat, right? The price is not perhaps as positive as what we might hope it to be. It complicates what we're doing in the fall of trying to get something planted at the same time you're harvesting. It complicates what your summers look like. You can figure out reasons why not to grow it. And our numbers on a year-to-year basis illustrate that out, right? In my neighborhood, we're not growing new wheat farmers, right? It's more and more folks deciding and making the decisions of we're not going to grow wheat anymore. And it's reflective of like how we build farms today in Michigan and the US, and what our agricultural system has been, right? Get bigger, get out. It's consolidate, it's add acres, it's add head, it's simplify management, it's mitigate risk, it's just make things easier and cover more acres, and we'll make it all up on production efficiencies. And I would contend that's put us in a place where we probably don't want to be, and it's a constraining path to growth for what we have in the state. The ag census came out last week, and I think really crystallized this for me of starting to dig into the numbers. If you look going back to 1997, so 25 years ago, for farms between 100 and 1,000 acres, we have lost, in Michigan, 1.8 million farms. And these aren't the small farms that are, $1,000 of income. These are, this is a viable, small to medium-sized operations. And 25 years ago, it was possible to run a legitimate, family business on 800 acres. So these are medium-sized farms. Our path to productivity in our ag industry, if I was standing in this room 25 years ago and told you, our path for growth and advancement in our industry is a third of you are going to go out of business in the next 25 years. That's not winning to me. over the same period, we've seen an increase of 315% of farms that are over 5,000 acres, right? Like we're turning small and medium-sized farms into big farms. And there are fewer people that win within that system. And there's bigger losses than just what it means for each individual farm family of how you grow operations, right? We're losing diversity of what we do across the state in terms of our cropping systems. And there are other losses that get associated with that, right? We know that the productivity of your corn and soybeans are going to go up when you have them in rotation with wheat. We know that we're going to have enhanced environmental outcomes when you're incorporating a cereal into the rotation, right? I mean, that's part of a broader strategy here of mitigating nutrient losses and controlling the intense precipitation we get with better water infiltration, better water holding capacity. There are losses downstream and costs downstream to that, right? When we can't manage water flows in fields as well as we probably used to, by having diverse rotations, there's cost to the city of Grand Rapids, right, when it floods. There's just this larger, and especially this comes back to why wheat is a really important case study for what we have going on, right? There's a lot of ancillary benefits to our broader agricultural economy when you're growing a crop that requires handling and processing and end use in the state. Like I think Star of the West would just as soon continue to be in the flour business. But the path to that becomes a little murky when we've got this approach here of just oversimplifying what we do and not valuing all the benefits to a crop like wheat throughout the value system. So all that to say, a lot of our work right now is trying to figure out how do we build out the value of our agricultural products in a more comprehensive way of acknowledging the fact that enhancing diversity of our cropping systems and getting more money into the rural economies offers people an opportunity to live in rural areas in a way they're choosing not to in the way we see too often now. But that's the path so your school doesn't consolidate with the next one over because no one's living in the small town anymore. And grappling with the fact that one of our existential costs moving forward is going to be how unhealthy our general population is because frankly, like frozen pizzas and Pepsi is your cheapest source of caloric intake if you're really worried about controlling costs on a household basis. So that's the charge here, right? That's the vision, that's the mission here of like how does agriculture become a path to addressing these really big challenges we have as a state and as a society and conceptualizing this in a way that we can put one foot in front of the other and improve broader quality of life. MDARD is part of, along with EGLE and DNR and state government, part of these quality of life agencies. I think it's an especially applicable name because at the end of the day, that our mission at MDARD, I believe, is general quality of life enhancement. It's more upward economic mobility for all of you in the room that are making your livelihoods in agriculture, but it's ensuring we've got a healthy environment for people to live in, healthy, safe, dependable food supplies. Like we're kind of doing salt of the earth work here at the department, but it becomes a really meaningful path to address these bigger things that we're trying to do. So I say all that to say that, I think it's fair to say we've got some pretty grand ambitions for how agriculture becomes a driver moving forward of what we're trying to do in the state. We're trying to, though, make sure that we've got specific opportunities and how do we put this in action. How does wheat become a bigger story of climate resiliency here in the state and understanding the value of the diversity it contributes? How is it a more meaningful way to advance economic prosperity for all of you? I want to make sure we're doing a lot of learning and listening as we go through that process. We're trying to get out and do an awful lot of interacting with stakeholders. We're trying to bring forth proposals and ideas of the department to put this sort of stuff together, talking about the value of feeding people in addition to supporting farms, that kind of pull through. I think there's a lot of optimism long-term for where we can go with this. Michigan is going to be a state that is well positioned to deal with challenges of the future. We're going to have comparatively reasonable access to water in a way that other states and other regions of the country are not. We still have a state where a lot of people do live, and those people are increasingly caring about how and where their food is grown. I see a lot of energy around the fact that we're going to start paying farmers more for the value of the products they're growing. And it's the quality of the food, it's the quality of what the production means to communities. Frankly, it's a way for all of you to make more money. And I think that we're moving away from just this mantra over the last 40 years of ag policy of get big or get out, but get big or get innovative. And there's a lot of reasons for optimism or for innovation to be taking hold here in Michigan. I'm thankful for having partners like the Wheat Checkoff that seizes this opportunity around innovation. So always happy to hear more input about what we need to be doing, how we put the pieces together, what are opportunities for all of us to continue to expand. But appreciate the partnership with Jody and the Wheat program. I know that the longer I talk, the longer we push back lunch. So I'm going to call it quits. Happy to field a question or two if anybody has them. Or I think Dennis might be up, and then we'll let
So we
people
got a few minutes. So
all right.
do we have any questions for Tim?
You're the FSA.
MDARD, State Department of Agriculture. FSA was the last gig. I can't keep a job anymore. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I know if you can create a value added to your product, you will probably survive. For example, Blueville Creamery in Nashville. They're taking a dairy product, turning it into ice cream, butter, get twice as much as what Country Fresh gets for their gallon of milk. Better milk, but Blueville does. But at some point, if 3 or 4 or 5 other creameries do the same thing, then it starts pushing down. Have you got any programs in the department to help these value-added processors, maybe so that it doesn't get overpopulated?
How do we not saturate the market with this higher value, higher cost kind of thing? A couple pieces of that, right? There's the challenges of how do you get innovative, how do you do something different off kind of the consolidation pathway. I think we've done a good job over the years of trying to figure out how we support the creation of more paths to grow your business, right? Of whether it's business capacity, whether it's installing new coolers, it's new product lines, that sort of stuff. I think controlling the costs and making it easier for folks to get into this path is a piece of this. The bigger pull-through becomes demand, right? And you say that well, the Moville stuff tastes better, right? Well, it's probably not just taste, right? There's other quality constituents and components to this that have value here. Starting to generate more market demand in a way that doesn't price people out of the market on it, I think is important. And you go all the way up to the fact that part of the challenge we're having getting a farm bill passed right now is because we've got just further entrenchment of this, like we've got farm interests over here, and we've got nutrition programs over here, right? And they're diametrically opposed, and it's a binary choice, right? You can only support one at a. We're a state that grows food, right? And so what you're doing in nutrition programs and how we're building food systems is pretty throughput demand for how you do this stuff in different ways. I think we've got a real opportunity in the state to start with our institutional buyers of schools and hospitals and prisons. Like, how are we valuing the production of food at home? So you grow the market demand for this kind of work as well. And it is, I mean, market fundamentals take over here too, right? The more value there is in folks doing it a different way, the more the economics work, the price points become a little bit lower and more manageable. But we've got to be flipping the script of how we create demand in a more substantial way. And if we're going to get to the point of healthcare costs are a significant thing, right? There is a government approach here, and a government that spent a lot of money in healthcare subsidization, would be better off of viewing it as food as medicine a little bit more, and understanding of supporting people eating healthier on the front end is probably a whole lot cheaper than treating them with a myriad of prescription drugs in the back end. It's re-envisioning like the role of how we build systems, which is slow and clunky, but I think there's potential for that to continue to move.
So Tim, I got a question for you. How does MDARD see the future of like carbon credits, the carbon market.
Yeah.
What is their vision, or what's happening with that?
Question around like what the future of carbon credits is and all this. I've been told too that carbon's the wrong thing to be measuring, right? Because it's too slow to evolve. You can't measure it quick enough. It's not the best. It's not the highest correlated factor with the environmental outcomes you value on the back end. I do think that this is a path, though, of additional revenue streams of more, and broadly, like more fully valuing the quality of the product you're growing, right? This is putting a dollar amount in a way of caring about how and where you're growing your food. I like the fact that it's back-end focused rather than process on the front end. I think this is a central tenet to why I'm bought in on the regen ag kind of pathway here, right? Of principles focused to outcomes. We've got technology today that's evolving quickly to a point of we can measure carbon in a more real-time environment on the landscape. Our government approach in the past has been, I'm going to give you $20 to plant cover crops because I think if you do that, we're going to have an outcome on the back end. So now I'm incentivizing you of how to grow, right? How to farm. If we're valuing what the outcome is on the back end, like this is what I want to see, right? We need to see fewer nutrient losses. We need to see improved carbon sequestration because we know we're pulling it out of the atmosphere and we're managing water flows. We're mitigating risk and building resilience in a way that's just not resilient on crop insurance. This is the outcome I care about on the back end. I don't care how you get there. Like I'm not going to tell you how to farm. I'm just going to tell you what I value and what we're going to pay. And to me, that's an approach far more consistent with the values I hear farmers talk about of don't tell me how to farm. Well, I'm not going to tell you how to farm. It's going to function how a market economy works, right? I'm not going to tell you what to grow. I'm just going to tell you what I'm going to buy. So I think it's a pathway of incentivizing and valuing production in a way that's more consistent with our values. It's more fiscally accountable because we can quantify what's on the back end rather than giving somebody $20 an acre for cover crops and hope we get something out of it. There's a lot of pieces, a lot of moving pieces to this, right? The technology piece, I think, is crucial to making it work today in a way it hadn't in the past, because, I mean, these aren't new ideas. But generally an approach more to fully valuing what we're doing on farms and using that as a value mechanism to help reward growers and like build a stronger economic case for this, I think is a compelling narrative that's got a lot of merit.
Okay, any more questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.